Join us on Now We Consume. Take in the knowledge, take in the laughs, indulge in the topics with us. The Now We Consume podcast will take you through the parts of your day you normally dread. Why suffer through the existential crisis of life alone when you can do it with us? And now we consume.
This is not meant to be a conspiracy episode or podcast, but we may cover some topics that dance that line like a toddler dances on their mother's last nerve. This podcast is rated I, for immature audiences only.
Hello and welcome back to Now We Consume, where our pain is your gain. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm your host, Gibbs. Along with me is my co-host, Pip.
Here to give you mental trauma the best I can.
Yeah, you do a really good job at that.
I just was.
You are a professional.
I am the professional that needs the professional.
I know. The problem is finding a professional for you is a whole different level.
Oh, yes.
You know. What is above a therapist? Like what is it, like a super therapist or something like that? Or like, do you have to get like a double masters or something, or a double doctorate? Hashtag double D therapist. I don't know. Like, does that, I don't know how that works.
I had a therapist with double D's. I couldn't concentrate.
The least surprising sentence you've ever said to me. She wonders why you answered everything as milk. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Why this guy? He's like Homelander. I don't have to tell you. It's just. Anyways, if you watch The Boys, you get that reference.
Oh.
But that milk scene. I'm sorry. It just
All
every
the
time it
milk
makes me
scenes.
laugh. Every time.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we want to discuss I think a very timely topic. We've discussed around it in a few episodes. Between our financial episodes and a few other things, we want to talk about the great housing crisis that's been going on, and that's probably going to continue going on. There's a few different facets here. There's a few different angles. We do quickly want to cover a bit of background when it comes to the most important part, which is the financial aspect, but we've covered a bit of it before. And then we want to move on to a couple of different areas that I think people, I think Pip rightly pointed this out, people aren't discussing the other issues, because most of it's financial that you see online. You see people complaining, oh, the housing market's bad because of finance. It's like, well, yeah, but there are other underlying issues that even if you can afford it to buy it, doesn't mean you can afford to maintain or repair it. So there's a few more things to go with that. Anyways, any other intro thoughts, questions, problems, concerns, issues before we get into it?
No. I'm just glad to have you back. That's all.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. We are switching the podcast just so everyone knows. We're going to start recording this on Mondays, Monday/Tuesdays, because unfortunately my weekends have just been all over the place. So at least this way, we know we can make it consistent again and kind of stick with a routine and a schedule. So that being said, I just do want to do a quick shout out. Please, make sure you guys follow us. And we appreciate all the followers on Discord, on Instagram, on TikTok. We've been having a lot of interactions lately and a big pickup in followings and stuff like that. So we really appreciate it, especially also with the Facebook group as well in the Discord and everything. So feel free to give us a like, follow, share, and we just really appreciate it. And that being said, shall we get into it?
Yeah. The numbers don't lie, and as painful as they are, they suck. As everybody has been seeing online, and as everybody has been talking about for the past basically 4.5 years now, ever since COVID, the cost of housing has gone through the roof. It may have hitched a ride in one of Elon's rockets, as far as I know. A recent study is now showing that the annual income that is needed to purchase a home is now at least $114,000, and that was at the end of last year, beginning of this year time frame.
Now, is that pre-tax or post-tax?
It didn't say. I'm going to say probably pre-tax.
Yeah. So basically, to throw it out there, after taxes, you as a couple, as two people, you got to be making $60,000 each a year, which on average is about $30 an hour. Mm-hmm. And there's so many areas of the country where that is not readily attainable.
Mm-hmm.
Even by people that have been working for years.
Right. Now, the bad part is, like you were just saying, that's actually almost double the actual median household income. The current median household income, which again, this is from the end of last year, is right around $75,000. And again, that's for two people.
Yeah.
So
I think that there's something I do want to make a point, which is I feel like there's a lot of people and call me crazy on this one, but I feel like the people that have the largest followings typically on social media are people that are in cities or near cities. So they really think the average American lives on much more than they do.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't understand that average people, like someone making $15, $18, even $20 an hour in most of the Midwest and the South, that used to be enough to live on.
A decent wage.
You used to be able to buy eventually a small house and have a car. That used to be the barrier to entry for most Americans was, hey, if you and your spouse each made at least $20 an hour, you're good.
Yeah.
You can do most anything, most anywhere outside of the major cities. Now, good luck. I mean, for fuck's sakes, you can barely find one-bedroom apartments in like the outskirts of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And shit like that for less than $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Where it used to be $400.
Yeah. First-time home buyers especially are getting hit the worst because they have to have the most criteria met. They often have to have the most down. Now there are some more programs coming online for first-time buyer assistance. I do think there needs to be even more done in that area. Zachary Loft, I think is his name, the guy that does all the housing and financial shorts and stuff on TikTok and whatnot. He does a lot of good videos, makes a lot of great points. One of the ones that he talked about was whenever a house is purchased, a percentage of the purchase price goes into a fund for first-time home buyers to act as down payment assistance. Because oftentimes the down payment is one of the biggest barriers to entry. Like people make enough to cover the cost, like the month to month, because they're paying rent right now, and rent is way higher than house payments. And if they can do that, then logic says they can probably cover a house payment that's going to be less than their rent. But they've been paying so much in rent that they can't save for the down payment. So
and the other problem is something for people to know is that when you apply for a mortgage, whatever you're paying for rent goes against your available income. So it's that weird problem where when you apply for a mortgage, let's just say you're paying $3,000 a month in rent, that's deducted from your available funds for a mortgage. So it becomes this weird problem.
Because you're not going to be paying that rent.
Yeah, but see, the mortgage companies don't care because you are a number, you are a risk factor.
Yeah.
That's part of some of the problem here. So it's this revolving door of you have to make, in some cases, 2 to 3 times what you would normally need to make in order to get approval to get a mortgage. And then the problem is between the rates that we have and what the home prices, even if you get 10 or 20% down, for some houses, like 20% down, that's going to be $100,000
or more.
So who the hell in this economy could save that? Like, sure, I'm sure eventually there are some people that if they have a dual income household and they really, really, really are tight on budgets, they can probably save that in like 4 to 5 years. But here's the thing. That for most people, that means no fun, no hobbies, no nothing. That's literally just going to work, coming home, sitting.
Yeah, that's living on rice and beans, maybe the occasional ramen.
Yeah, to really spice it up, you know. It's for most people, they're just not living. That's why I think so many younger people have checked out of ever buying a home.
Yeah, they're going to rely on the pass down homes, the inheritance houses.
Yep. Which I do want to warn people: be careful. Because, so this is something that I've dealt with, and thankfully I found a way to avoid this. But when a house is passed down to you, especially
if it's not done the right way, holy shit, you're in for it.
Well, here's the thing. Capital gains is 20 or 25% on anything past $250,000. What that means is by the time they bought the house versus the time they died and you get it, you have to pay on that difference. So let's just say theoretically, like my grandparents, when they bought this house for $11,000 and now it's worth $880,000, I would technically be responsible on the hook for damn near $200,000. Do you know what I would not be doing? Being able to afford the house. So I'd be forced to sell it and take that loss, and I lose 20% for no reason.
Right.
But whereas, because I spoke to a lawyer, granted it cost me $2 to $3 grand in lawyer's fees and everything else to get everything else set up, It's now to where I own the house on my name and I don't have to pay any taxes on that.
Right.
So I do recommend people, estate planning is huge, and that's something that's going to be coming up very soon for a lot of people, especially when a lot of people listening might have parents or grandparents that are older. I cannot recommend enough to talk to an estate planner.
Right. Yeah, the estate situation is something that honestly cannot be stressed enough as far as like a serious thing, because life comes at you fast and you never know when your number's up. So whether you're 30 or 44 or, even 26 or 28, it doesn't matter. You got to plan for it. So get your bases covered and do what you can. That's one thing that I'm actually starting to have to sit down and go over here in the near future.
Oh, yeah. Estate planning is huge. And it's one of those things, once you have assets that are worth something, definitely talk to a lawyer that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're going to be expensive. I'll tell you that right now. But it's
like you just said, the couple grand that you paid is going to cover the cost of what you would have had to, a percentage of what you would have had to pay.
I spent 1% of what it would have been. So basically it was 99% in savings that I spent.
Yeah.
So, it's a no-brainer. So just make sure people please. That's one of the biggest piece of advice I can give you.
Yeah. On
this topic anyway.
But back to the numbers. The housing cost, one of the biggest differences, we were talking about the cost of houses. Inside of the cities, the annual income, like he had mentioned, you may need $200,000 to $300,000 a year for the family, versus the 115 or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
Not many people I know make that. And I mean, I live near a pretty big city in Ohio, so there are people that make that, but it's not a lot.
No.
About 60% of households in the U.S. Cannot afford a $300,000 home, which is less than the median price of a single family home, which is about $460,000.
Yeah.
So that's saying something when 3/4 of the country cannot buy the median price house. I think houses are a little overpriced right now, but it also has to do with available inventory. But we'll touch on that here a little bit later too.
And also, something you guys need to consider too is because taxes are based on percentages, when the houses are more expensive, all of your taxes become more expensive, and then the house gets more expensive, and then it becomes more expensive to do work on it. It's this revolving just accumulation of value. And my cat just jumped in my lap. Hello.
Hi, kitty.
What are you doing, girl? Anyway, sorry. So if you hear a random meow, I apologize. But she's been, the whole time ever since we started this, she's been yelling at me.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just something to consider for people as well if you're trying to buy a house that taxes on them are tough. So just make sure you do your due diligence.
Yeah. So aside from houses themselves being a little overpriced, we still got high mortgage rates. They've been spiking since after COVID. The rocket increase after the COVID issues. I know I got ultra lucky. I've got a rate that is probably never going to be seen again.
Is it sub 3%?
Uh-huh.
What do you have?
2.5.
Fuck you.
But hey, I can't. I'm trapped. I can't sell. So there's the other issue. I have a mortgage. I cannot sell.
I have a couple of friends that bought houses at like low 2% rates, and they're like, I don't even like the house, but I want to die in this bitch. Like, I can't afford to move even if I wanted to. And what people don't realize too is like with percentage rates, you might think, 2% versus 4% isn't a big difference, but when it comes to mortgages with that compound interest over time, it's massive. If you guys ever want to mess around with it, look at the difference. Find like a mortgage compound interest rate calculator on Google. Throw in $100,000 and look at the difference that you actually pay over 30 years between like 2% and 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And to give you guys
massive.
an idea why it's so crazy is because just a few short years ago, 4 to 5%, even 3% was common. Whereas right now, like a lot of people are getting 9%, 8%, 7%. And while 7% isn't terrible, when the house is $500,000, when you end up paying like $800,000, when you end up paying $800,000 by the time that's over, it's insane. You're like,
you're going to pay way more than that.
I don't even know what 7% would be on 500,000. To be honest with you, offhand, I didn't check that.
Yeah, I don't know. The inventory of houses that I mentioned a little bit ago, we are short on houses. Roughly, and this is a current number, we have a shortage of about 4.5 million homes.
Which is insane because we have like 8+ million vacant homes.
Yeah, that's a problem. I don't know if those are being figured into the numbers.
Yeah,
but I blanked.
Sorry, my cat is she's being ultra needy right now, and I don't know why. So, anyways, but that's one of the things that I've noticed. I was going through some numbers the other day, and I mean, when you have 8+ million, almost 10 million homes available, but yet we have a housing crisis in the matter of a few million. It's like, well, number one, they could be rented out, but there's a lot of people, I think, that bought years ago that were able to have second homes and third homes and investment homes and other things. Whereas because of that, and it's great that they have that, that's awesome. But that does mean that the market, after a while, slowly becomes, less and less available.
Yeah.
That supply becomes more limited. But also, one of the issues is it's way harder to build nowadays. You would think, it'd be easier by now. It's like, no, between local regulations and government regulations and requirements and permitting, oh my God, permits, especially with local towns and municipalities, it becomes a nightmare.
Yeah,
to get anything approved.
Those are aids. I'm glad I live in a part of town where I don't have to worry about permits. I can literally take a sketch on a napkin down to the board and be like, this is what I want to do. And they'll be like, all right, go ahead.
Can you really like add whatever you want on your house or like
yes.
do additions and do? That's one thing that I'm jealous about, where since I'm in the Northeast, you have to do permits for everything. If it's anything bigger than like an 8x8 shed, you have to get a permit for it.
No. Short of building another house on my property. And even then, it's not even a full permit. I can get a homestead exemption.
That would be cool. All right, Cat. You need to go, girl. Come on.
It would be nice.
Could you leave my lap, Cat? No? All right. I guess why? I know. I love you too, but come on. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyways, also the other thing on that list too that I'm glad you brought up on the list was insurance premiums. If you look at areas, particularly in like Florida, for example, where there's only a couple of different insurance providers, so there's kind of like a small monopoly, as well as in a lot of different areas between insurance providers pulling out of certain areas like California, between wildfires and everything else. It's becoming an issue to where when there's fewer insurance companies, they don't have to fight over it.
Right.
You're not trying to fight for your business. So they can just charge whatever they want. And because their value is based on, whatever the payout is for if the home goes out or goes under fire or if it floods or whatever, as the home values increase, obviously the premiums are going to increase, as well as there's going to be more stipulations. So again, it just compounds this issue.
Yeah. Construction costs as well are an absolute joke. We're going to touch on that whole issue later, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet. Wages. So we were talking about the whole cost of ownership. The cost of houses has doubled, and wages have gone up by single-digit percentages over the same time.
They really haven't gone up much at all.
In some areas. Some areas are seeing slight increases over others, but it's not much and it's not enough.
Yeah.
So
Also depends on the industry too. That's the other thing you got to consider. Is there some industries that they're trucking way up, whereas other ones have flatlined.
Yeah,
So,
or declined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you said that you're not on board with the whole UBI concept, and I don't want to have to be on board with the UBI concept, but man, life and a lot of other factors are just, it's pushing that way, and I don't like it.
We might have to at some point. We'll see.
Yeah.
But the rate we're going.
Cost burdened. Most homeowners are now cost burdened, which means they spend 30% or more of their monthly income on housing. In some cases, it's 50% in the case of a lot of renters. Yeah. So you can't do much if you're spending 30 to 50% of your month-to-month income on the roof over your head. That doesn't leave a lot of room for your car, your food, your utilities, your kids. I feel so bad for the families that have or are trying to have or trying to plan to have young kids, because, oh my fucking God, the cost of daycare, holy shitballs.
Yeah, like
if you do not know, yeah, that can be for one kid, dude.
Yeah, per kid per month, yeah.
Oh,
you know what's crazy though is I was looking at those daycare centers. A lot of them still pay their people like $20 an hour.
They pay them garbage.
Yeah,
$20 an hour around here for a daycare worker is gold.
So like, why at that point you could make a boatload of money
opening your own
if you just run a daycare center.
A lot of it is the mental strain. Because I tell you what, not everybody is cut out to handle that many kids for that long of a day, every day, day in and day out.
Not everyone's cut out to have kids, let alone manage 8 of them.
You are so right. Holy shit. If I could institute one like hard law, you would have to get a breeding permit. I am a freedom-loving son of a bitch, but listen, instituting a breeding permit, oh, buddy. Yes, sir.
Just, I can't imagine the idea of a police officer just sticking his head in your bedroom window going, hey, you got papers for that penis? Like, I have to tell you, just like...
Penis papers, please.
Is your dong registered? Do you have to get it, like, stamped?
The mushroom stamp. Bonk.
They rename it that. You know, it's gonna be a weird timeline like 20 years from now when officers are asking for your mushroom stamp. I'll tell you that's a weird timeline. You know something wrong.
You know, CERN fucked up then.
Idiocracy. We are but years away.
Yep.
We are steamrolling to that.
In fact, mushroom stamp is what I want my idiocracy name to be. I want to be called Mushroom Stamp. That is what I want my ID name to be.
Oh God.
If we could have President Not Sure, I want to be Mushroom Stamp.
First name Mush, middle name Rum, last name Stamp.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Anyways.
But no, I don't disagree with that idea. It's unfortunate
about
one of those
the
things.
Mushroom Stamp?
No, about the like, it's one of those things where unfortunately, if people are not in a point in life to where they can handle kids, they probably shouldn't be having. But unfortunately, it's the people that are the least aware that usually have the most kids.
Yeah.
So
again, Idiocracy. Holy shit.
I know.
It's prophetic movie.
It's scary.
I know.
It truly
also, here's another terrible trend. We talked about this. America is depopulating. Slowly but surely.
Well, so we are not having children, but we're bringing in people from other countries to populate.
Yeah, that's not the way we want to do it.
No, because then
we lose the American heritage.
Well, it's the idea of you're not bringing in people that have those, you don't know if they have those values or not.
Right.
You know, and it's also one of those things where they don't really have any skin in the game. It's like, you know, they're just here getting benefits where or being in the system or doing whatever you're doing. But it's one of those things to where if there's nothing that unites a group of people, there's no common set of values, and like, what do you have? You look at a lot of these other countries that are made up of primarily of immigrants. It's like, cool, they have a lot of cool stuff, but when you look at their political structure and everything else, it's really tough. It becomes a really big struggle, and that's probably not where we want to go.
No.
See, for example, the strife that's happening in like Eastern Europe, for example, or even in London and Paris and places like that. But not to get too sidetracked.
Yeah.
It's, to go from there as well.
The last number I want to call it on
yes.
the cost burden thing, about 24%, a quarter of homeowners are cost burdened. So it's about 20 million homeowners are cost burdened. So 20 million people that own their homes are spending 30 to 50% of their income on their home itself and nothing else.
And they're just paycheck to paycheck.
You don't have to rent to live paycheck to paycheck. You can do it as a homeowner.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
And what the scary thing that people need to think about is, for a lot of those people too, that means they're probably not contributing to a 401k or a Roth IRA. They're not able to diversify their income or their funds. And so what happens is we're going pretty closely like what happened in Canada, where in Canada they have the issue of a lot of Canadians, most of their retirement is actually in the value of their house, because they don't really have that much in retirement, because in Canada they didn't make enough to actually put into the stock market on average. So a lot of Canadians face this weird problem of the houses are too expensive to buy, but if they lose their value, they won't have a retirement. So that's what happens to put all your eggs in one basket, to where you're basically screwed. That's why the American way worked for so long, whereas people buy their house, build a bunch of equity, and invest in the stock market and other ways to be able to secure their retirement. By this cost being so high, most Americans will put all of their income into buying a house with a little bit of land. But then what happens when you're 65, 70, when you can't work? Then you're unfortunately kind of left in a situation where you can't afford the house, you can't work. And for most Americans, unfortunately, most houses are not very elderly friendly. So we don't build houses to a standard. There's not many houses you buy nowadays. If you guys even noticed, one of the issues that we see is because builders want to maximize their profits, they build big houses, or 2-story or 3-story houses. So the problem is there aren't starter homes available. There aren't one-level houses available, unless you want to go to like a trailer park, which that's a whole different thing. And even then, those are becoming expensive, by the way. In my area, those are almost $150,000, $200,000 for a freaking trailer in a trailer park, which is mind-blowing. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So there are people I know making $70,000, $80,000 that are lucky and happy to be able to afford to live in a trailer park.
That's wow.
Yeah.
I just saw a trailer posted up for $900 a month over here.
What the sad part is, that's going to get sold like that. That's going to be rented out tomorrow.
Oh, it's probably gone already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we've just been mostly talking about homeowners. The rental market itself is not left out of this. Rent has surged. I'm sure most people listening that have dealt with rent in the past 5 years, 10 years have seen that as well. The number of units renting for inflation adjusted $1,000 a month or less fell by over 30% between 2013 and 2023, while those renting for $2,000 or more in that same time frame nearly tripled. So same units, double the price, just because. Many renters, especially those from low-income families, are severely cost burdened, in many cases paying half or more of their income on rent, which means they absolutely cannot save. How can they? Again, 50, 60, 70% of your income going to your roof. You got to eat. You got to have power and whatnot. Gas in the car to get to work. There's not much left. So,
not to mention, between that and medical expenses or anything else, you take one trip to the ER and your whole savings fund is wiped out.
Yeah, I think most people just wing it, and they rely on the fact that the hospitals don't charge you up front.
Or there's a lot of people I know that just don't pay their medical debts. They're like,
oh yeah, they just can't.
And they wonder why for the few people that do pay, it costs $10,000 to have a doctor look at your leg and say, yep, it's there. Here's my bill.
Yeah.
Like, well, you got to pay for the 9 people that don't pay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That side ramble. When my father passed, we were looking over the charges that we got from the hospital.
Yeah.
They charged $16,000 for physical therapy for him while he was at the hospital. They were walking him around the hallway.
Yeah.
They charged $16,000 to do that for a couple days. To walk the man around the hallway.
And they probably paid the therapist $40 an hour.
And people wonder why people do things to their CEOs. I don't know. Where are we?
It's just, I don't know. That we already did an episode on some medical stuff, and I'd say refer to that one.
Yes.
For our opinions on that one.
Where are we? Okay. The housing shortage is a significant burden on the broader economy, costing states billions in lost economic output, personal incomes, and of course, jobs. It reduces consumer spending, increases employee turnover, and hinders any business's ability to attract and retain talent. The shortage of affordable housing costs American economy about $2 trillion a year in lower wages and productivity.
Ain't that the truth?
Uh-huh.
Now, let's talk about something that I think most people are not talking about.
Yeah, this is the big one.
This is to where, okay, anyone can talk about the economy. We discussed, now we did the primer for this. Now let's get into something that, well, that's kind of more our unique viewpoint, which is, quite frankly, almost all the houses built nowadays, their quality sucks ass. I don't know if you guys have seen any videos from inspectors or people that are buying new houses looking at the inspections and the quality control and everything. There are so many people that saw the market say, hey, let's become the world's worst flippers ever. Buy this house. We'll absolutely ram things through over the next couple of weeks. We'll half-ass everything. And then we'll create an LLC for it, sell it, destroy the LLC so they can't sue us and move on to the next one. And that's what people do, which is insane. How do I know? Oh, because I know people this has happened to where they can't sue the people that built the house because, oh, that company no longer exists. Sorry. But, oh, well. There's no standards with it. And as long as they pay the local inspector when they go to sell it, they slip them a couple of bucks and say, hey, pass the house, and they will. Absolutely. That's
because
why
money talks.
Yeah, if you buy any new construction house, get not only one inspector, but 2. Make sure they don't know of each other, don't know anything. Find one that's even from out of your area, maybe, so the builders may not have paid them off, or they might not be in the know kind of thing. But I have seen numerous videos and reports about houses, brand new houses that already have massive water leaks, electrical issues. I mean, you name it. It's scary because all these people are thinking, oh, they can just become a general contractor and just do this. Or they can just build a house, or they'll contract out every little thing. And they don't quality control. They don't know how to do anything. But because there's no quality control standards and people need the house, everyone's going to say, well, I need a house if it needs some work to it. Like, fine, whatever. And people deal with it. What they don't realize is to get real work done, actual quality work in the trades. It costs money now. This is not just, hey, I'll pay a plumber $500 to fix my bathroom. No. You're talking thousands for every little issue. And unfortunately, in a lot of places, to get that issue looked at, you then have to get a permit to have that fixed. That's another cost added on top of it. As well as you have to pay for their time to get the permit, which is another cost added on top of it. So it's this endless revolving door of something that used to be 20 years ago, a few $100s. Now it's become a few $1,000s. And how many people buy a brand new built house and set aside $40,000 for repairs? No one. No one does that. They think, oh, it's a brand new built house, and if the company built it and they have a 10-year warranty or a 5-year warranty or a 20-year warranty.
It's normally a 1-year warranty.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the number is. It could be 3 days, but that company's not going to exist. By the time you get to sue them and do everything, they're already going to sell and move on. Mm-hmm. So just be aware of this. It's so absolutely terrible.
I spoke to our friend Gibbles, who, if you've listened to the show for a while, you know he's been on a few times. He's gone through the house building process twice now. He feels that he has gotten lucky both times, but in this most recent build of his, he was a very active customer. He was going by the build site daily or almost daily to make sure that they weren't cutting corners. There were some minor issues, but they were corrected before everything was handled. He said he had one issue with some steps that were starting to crumble, some concrete steps, but that was fixed by the builder, and that's the only thing that he's really run into. A lot of the videos that you're talking about, there are major issues down to like the foundation. Those are hard to correct after the house is up. I've seen some videos of houses undergoing construction and a bad storm comes through. Not tornadoes, just some like gusting winds, and it topples these houses. Is that really a house that you want to live in? In some parts of the country down towards the south, I want to say south and southwest, there are building companies trying to get away with simply building a frame and then putting the Tyvek wrap around the frame and then the siding onto the frame from that. They're not putting up a hard foundation shell on the outside.
So no plywood or MDF or anything like that?
Nothing.
No.
Just the frame, the Tyvek, and the siding.
Wow.
And they're saying that meets code.
Bullshit.
I'm like, yeah. Code for fucking Tinker Toys.
That what they're trying to build is a glorified shed.
Essentially, yeah.
Trying to build.
But it's a whole house.
Yeah.
Like the ones I have in these pictures behind me right here.
Yeah.
This is what they look like when they're done. And if you aren't there for the build process, you would never know because they get drywall on the inside. You're not going to know until the first time a loud storm rolls through and you notice, oh, it sounds like that storm is right inside the house. I mean, you've got, if you're getting a house built, you have to be an involved customer.
So what I've heard from people is don't buy the houses that are built in big pre-built sections. Hire a company to build it specifically for you that has a reputation. Because they're building that one-off for you, you would think they'd be more likely to cut corners, but actually from what I've heard, they're more likely to do it right. Whereas the big builders that build like 30 or 50 houses at a time, they're going to cut all the corners because they got 50 of them. They don't give a shit if a couple of houses are pieces of shit. They don't care. They're making $300,000 or $400,000 of profit per house anyway. They don't care.
That's the other issue. It's literally minimal cost for maximum profit.
Mm-hmm.
They've got houses that are going up costing them $150,000 to build, and they're trying to sell them for $700,000 with all kinds of issues. Loose electrical fixtures, leaking gas lines, cracks in the foundation. I mean, literally all kinds of like serious issues.
My favorite one I saw was a lady was trying to take a shower, and literally there was an electrical wire that was on the pipes, the water pipes.
Oh yes, I remember seeing that one.
Literally, you could take a like an insulated screwdriver, put it near the water, you'd see the electricity arcing on it. And it's shit like that is getting passed all the time. And for most people, they don't know how to fight that. Like,
no.
What do? You know, you got to live there. You got to wake up in the morning and take a shower. You don't want to be a stinky, miserable bitch for like 3 months waiting. Like, I just want to take a shower. Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing you can do other than you have to fix it and go after them afterwards.
Yeah,
and that's not right. That should be part of why we're paying taxes and paying for these other things. There really should be a fund at some point to where, hey, if the builder of your house screwed you over, the tax revenue on that extra sales tax they pay for that house, that's part of a program that helps cover you, and the government goes after them. Is how it should be. But that's a whole different...
Yeah.
That'd be too smart. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I think also there's another factor in here that I would like to bring up because I feel like this is important. because so few young people have gone into the trades, and I know we had this discussion before about the issue with the trades where, one, a lot of young people didn't go into the trades, but also two, a lot of older people discourage young people from going into it. So we have this problem of educated Americans aren't in the trades, but there's a lot of people we've imported from other countries in the trades. So the issue is you have these large roaming contractors that just hire a ton of people that are either here illegally or are uneducated or do not have the licenses for these trades. And because it's under that big construction thing anyway, if they make $20 million in profit off of selling those houses, they close down the company, set it up, and close it down, make a new one. You can't sue them, so they don't care if these people have their licenses or not. And I hate to say that, because I bet you there are some contractors that pride themselves, or general contractors say, oh yeah, of course everyone has their license, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you, as somebody that was a commercial kitchen installer that has been on some of these sites, that has seen some shit, no way. There's no way. When you see entire crews of people that nobody knows what the hell they're doing, they don't know the right end of a fucking hammer. And the sad part is, you just have to go with it. So, just this is an unfortunate byproduct of several generations telling kids don't work with your hands, don't go in the trades. It's like, well, when you have 20, 30 years of nobody working in construction, who's going to do the labor jobs? You know, who's doing the framing, Mansley? You know, there's got to be someone.
Yep. Yeah, we had a lot of people sit there and try to discourage hard work. You know, people just try to say that hard work is a bad thing. So,
and I disagree with that immensely. Having some pride in your craftsmanship and what you do, that's huge, especially nowadays with the profit margins.
Oh God, yeah.
If you are a good framer or good with construction or with foundation or concrete, oh my God, at concrete, holy shit, it's insane the profit margins now you can make. Some of the richest guys I know around here now, they're now literally framers, contractors, landscapers, stuff like that. They make a killing. So
good electricians, after a couple of years, can literally write their own paychecks.
HVAC in my area
HVAC
is
too.
Huge. There's someone I know making $160 a year.
Yeah.
They work 6 hours a day.
Oh yeah. Is it who I know?
Oh yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
A good hard 6 hours a day.
Oh wow. What a rough day.
And you know what the sad part is? Still struggling to buy a house even with that much income. Just my area. It's insane.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where you can get a degree in IT or get a degree in this or that or whatever you want, but seriously look into the trades, especially if you're somebody that's good with your hands, a quick study, quick learner, and willing to put in some work. Because there's a lot of companies that honestly, if you're willing to take your time and do it right, you won't have to bust your ass like you used to. You won't have to work 60, 70 hours of overtime just to make it. Not anymore. It's different now. And it's quickly changing that way. But sorry, I got a bit of a tangent, but...
Oh yeah, no, you're good. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go over all the lists of defects and stuff, but like, there are many. Mm-hmm. So even when you're going to buy a house, if you get to that point in life, get a very good home inspector. Like Gibbs was saying, get a couple of them. Find people that are not associated with your realtor. Be thorough. Do the inspection yourself. There are courses online that you can take to become a home inspector. You don't actually have to become the home inspector, but learn the things to look for. Absolutely. And then when the home inspector is there, you can point stuff out and ask questions. You might see things they miss. And since they're there, you can write it up or they can write it up. Do the work. It's your house. It is the biggest investment of your life. So put some work into it.
A buddy of mine that's a realtor gave me a bit of advice, which was that if you go to buy a house, I agree with you 100%, Pip. Take a bunch of photos, take videos, anything you think maybe sort of might be out of place, document it. Mm-hmm. Document it. And that way, when the inspector comes through, you're going to be able to tell real quick whether they looked or not. Don't even let them in the house. Outside, show them, hey, I found this. Did you see this? Did you see that? If they tell you no on everything, you know your inspector's worthless. But if they tell you, oh yeah, I have these photos too, or I saw this, or, you know, it's a quick litmus test to see whether you're getting value out of that. And that way, if you don't, immediately put up a bad review, immediately move on, find someone else. And there are some good inspectors out there. And I do agree with you as well. The actual courses to become a home inspector are not expensive. And there's so many people on YouTube that give that information out for free.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch, was it Homes on Homes? He was,
Yes.
Yes. So he was one of my favorites. He was a general contractor that was also an inspector. He was on HGTV for a while back in the mid to late, like 2010s. I don't know if his show is still on there. I know it kind of wasn't around after COVID because everything switched with HGTV. But Homes on Homes was, I think his name was Mike Holmes, I believe, or something like that. But he was really good, really knowledgeable. And that's a show to where you can learn a lot, as well as like This Old House, for example, with Norm Abrams. Classic,
Oh, yeah.
Classic. My grandfather actually met him and somewhat knew him. So my house, fun fact, before my grandparents got old, he actually sent a letter to Norm Abrams about this house that I live in. But because we had so much going on with the horses and everything else, the filming crew and scheduling, it would not have worked.
Oh, wow.
So this house did not end up getting featured, which kind of bummed because I was like 8 or 9 at the time. My grandfather told me this like a few years ago before he died, and I was like, man, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, it would have.
But
yeah. So the thought of building a house is great, but where are you going to build? You can't just build it on thin air. You have to have land. And unfortunately, while we can build houses all day, we can build straight up if we have to. We cannot make more land unless you're Lex Luthor. So land has become an issue as of late. The federal government has even gone so far as to start mulling the process to allow federal controlled lands to be sold to companies and other entities for the use of development for houses. I'm not sure how I feel about this because a lot of the sales have been geared towards, certain investment companies, like our favorite BlackRock, who owns
BlackRock,
everything.
Vanguard, State Street, all the usual culprits.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my thought, because I have a big issue with this. I'm naturally a little bit more of a conservationist when it comes to nature and land and whatnot. I understand it's a short-term solution. I'll just sell a bunch of federal land so they can build on it. I have 2 issues. One, why the fuck do companies get to buy land before American citizens? Like, not to be rude, but at least extend the opportunity to us citizens to be like, hey, if you want to buy this land, we're willing to sell it, and we're going to sell at fair market value. Okay, I feel like I'm owed that because I've kind of.
Here's 100,000 acres out in this state for dirt cheap. Yeah. Buy it, $50 an acre or whatever.
But why wouldn't they do it so fair market value? Maybe the idea should be, okay, we're going to have pre-approved houses by a bunch of builders that already meet the criteria in this state. We're going to sell this land. We're divvy up these acreages anywhere between like 1 acre plots, half acre plots, if you want small plots, up to 4, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, and a couple of 1,000 acre plots or whatever. And basically pre-lay out almost like a small town or a city. Or based small town, more like a small town. So the idea is the town already has this planned out. And they know the houses that are already pre-approved that meet criteria, meet everything from builders. And they pick various ones and they offer up like 50 or 100 different designs, let's just say, that are pre-approved. So when you buy this land, you don't have to redo the permit process or anything. They know where the water mains are going to come in. They know if you need septic, electrical, everything else. Everything's already done. So then the idea is for people that maybe want to buy and build their first house, they can do it at a reasonable price. Like imagine being able to, let's just say in the middle of Utah or Colorado or something like that, being able to buy 5 acres of land for like 50 grand and then spend $200,000 and build a house and have a brand new house. That's good. That's nice. It has a garage, has everything, and you're into it for $250,000. Do you know how many families could actually start their lives and actually go somewhere with that?
A lot. But the kicker is you can't just build the houses. You have to build literally a whole town. You have to build the post offices, the shopping centers, the retail outlets, the entertainment stuff.
And you know what you do?
Everything has to be built all at once.
But you know what you do, which is pretty simple? you use the profit that is made from the sales of that land. All of that goes into the local government infrastructure. So the idea is, by the time they sell all the plots of land, it's basically a 3-year reserve, where the idea is you buy the land and then in 3 years you can build.
Mm-hmm.
So that way the government has 3 years to sell that land, get the money together for local government, say, hey, we have a lump sum of $500 million that we've raised for this town that we've now planned to build like 1,200 homes. So let's just say theoretically, because what? If you sold $50,000 an acre, you sell 10,000 acres or something like that, you're going to end up with, you know, what, 50 million, 100 million, something like that. So here's the thing. For $100 million, I think you can do, and this is all just very, very basic math. For $100 million, I think you could build a local municipality, things like your local police station, fire station, elementary school, middle school / high school, get all those buildings built, even a local, like a little medical center or something like that. And then guess what? After those 3 years are up and all that stuff is built, now everyone can build their homes. Now that from day one, you have all these services available, and they had a surplus to run the local economy and run that municipality. This is not that hard. I'm just some fucking moron that thought about this for all of like 2 hours.
Hey, you said it, not me.
Well, I'm honest with you. So it just boggles my mind that our elected officials can't think of something like that would work and create towns from the ground up that would be efficient and have walkways and pathways and all these other things. But their solution is, we're just going to fucking bulk sell it to a bunch of investment firms and let them do whatever the fuck they want with it. Mm-hmm. Really?
So,
like, that's going to help the average American?
We have an episode on cities of the future keyed up for a future episode. Those kinds of issues will be discussed in that episode. However, I do want to make one statement, because this is information that is relevant to both that future episode and this current conversation. I recently found out villages may still be illegal in the U.S. I'm not sure, because I grew up in a village. It was a sanctioned village of the town that I lived in. Something about the municipal codes have changed, so villages can no longer be established within the borders of the country. I have to look into it.
So that it has to be a town?
It's got to be at least a town, and there are guidelines.
Why not a village?
I don't know. I think it's got something to do with the laws that can govern a village.
I wonder if it's because they want minimal hookups and minimal control.
Well, I think villages are allowed to have like homesteads and off-grid stuff.
Oh, shit. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I'm like 90% sure that's the reason.
If they're going after my off-the-grid and homesteading stuff, that's how you make me mad. That's how you get me involved.
So, as best I can tell and remember, just from what I was reading and watching, that was the push. They have outlawed villages because in villages you're allowed to have like homesteads, off-grid stuff, and that was the push. So we can wait till we do the Cities of the Future episode to bring all that up.
I'm going to tism on that later, because that piques my interest.
Do the tism, buddy.
I need to look that up, because if you're right about that, I'm going to get consumed by it.
This is the podcast for it.
Exactly.
So, like we were talking about, BlackRock being allowed to buy the land up, that's got to not be allowed. Making it available for purchase by the general public, develop it as such, state, federal assistance, sure. The land can be developed, but the issue is a lot of it is just out in the open. It's out in the middle of nowhere. So it's got to be a full 100% brand new from scratch kind of deal. Not a lot of people are willing to just pack up and go. You're going to get a lot of these tech bros that will do it because they can. They've got these remote jobs that they can do from wherever. Those may or may not be the kinds of people you want populating these brand new cities. So that's something that you have to take into consideration when you're building all of this stuff up.
Well, I don't know. I guess I wish that the U.S. government would be a little bit more lenient with us starting our own homesteads in our own villages in our own areas. Just let me buy like 100 acres and start my own family compound, please. Just leave me alone.
More people should do that. More people should be able to do that as well. The family compound. There's some people that do that on YouTube and whatnot. And they document all that shit. The 100-acre plots, and then they split them up with 5 families, so everybody's got 20 acres or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
And everybody helps everybody out. They don't need the government. That's the issue. They are too self-reliant, and that scares the government.
It's the only case of communism to ever work is in groups of under 100 like that.
Yeah.
Like groups of under 50 or 100 to where you just have a few families.
Socialism.
Yeah. Effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, you're right, more socialism. But it's the idea of, all of you getting together, working together, seeing each other often, being reliant. It can work. But I will agree with you that that's something the government does not like. Because if you can run independently, you don't need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one family raises, goats and chickens. One family raises rabbits and cows. One family does all the gardening. One family does all the woodwork stuff,
Yeah.
Trade as needed.
I've always wanted to do that. That's always been like a secret thing of mine. I would love to buy 1,000 acres somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and just get together a bunch of friends' families and do it. But you can't do it nowadays. That's the problem. There's no way of doing it.
It can be done, but it's just,
Yeah, if you got a spare 10 million in the bank,
Yeah.
Because the problem is the taxes on that alone and all the different permits and stuff, unless you can find a state where you don't need that, but it's very difficult nowadays.
Yeah.
It's very discouraged, shall I say.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when there's states where you can't legally have a house that's not hooked up to the main electrical water.
That's an issue. Another thing to consider is that with the possibility of BlackRock buying more land and whatnot, it feeds into the BlackRock is buying all of our homes narrative. That's something that a lot of people have been talking about in recent years because of the amount of homes BlackRock has been intertwined with as having purchased at an institutional level. It's not BlackRock directly; it's a lot of their subsidiaries. They're buying up houses to rent out to people so that people can't buy these houses as single family owners. That's also hurting the house supply that we talked about earlier. So BlackRock is just evil, and they need to be dissolved. And Larry Fink should just be maybe dragged through the street, left to rot on a corner.
I will not get involved with that comment. Pimp's opinions are not the official opinions of the Now We Consume podcast, and those opinions are purely his own.
Piece of shit.
I agree with you though.
Yeah, I can't stand that piece of shit.
You know, I have nothing against millionaires and billionaires. What I have against are people that are willing to subsidize the suffering of people as long as it benefits themselves. It's like, come on, like you could be wealthy. You don't have to be a piece of shit. There's two different things, but it seems unfortunate that, and again, I am not anti-capitalism in the slightest, but it seems like the older you get, the more you realize, like, wow, a lot of these people get to a point where they're so far removed from reality that, like, they don't give a shit. They don't care. But because they're so far removed, they don't have to. They know no one can hurt them. No one can touch them.
Yep. So the big debate on the sale of federal lands, some of the things that kind of spurred it on was to reduce national debt. It's not a new concept. Senator Mike Lee out of Utah has proposed it. He has proposed selling millions of acres out in the West for other housing and infrastructure developments. Again, if it's done correctly, if it's done for the people, to the people, sure, I'll support it. The Big Beautiful Bill Act, there's an amendment in that bill to I lost my place. I'm sorry. also introduced by Mike Lee, that would require the Department of Agriculture and the Department of the Interior to identify 3 million acres of public land for sale for housing and community development over the next 5 years. Unfortunately, that proposal has sparked a lot of debate. Again, which way it goes, we'll have to wait and see. I know the bill is in the House and Senate right now getting ripped apart. So they just did a 16-hour reading session of the entire bill. So we'll have to see what comes out of that.
I'm already against that bill because if it takes 16 hours to read it, it's too fucking long.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but no bill should be more than 10 pages. Call it a day. That's goddamn ridiculous, number one. Number two, if you're going to be selling federal land or anything like that, you can't just do a big swath like that and say, oh yeah, we're going to sell thousands of square miles. No. You do it in small sections. You do it as needed. You don't just sell off that much in one go. No way. I think that's very irresponsible. Especially when if you're doing something at that scale, there's no way to know the damage that'll be caused to the local wildlife by the developers that are going to come in there and just demolish everything. Especially when, not for nothing, between all the different countries that we're competing for things like mineral rights and resources and varying things, what I'm concerned about is another company buying up all that land and be like, all right, time to mine silicon or time to mine this and that or lithium or anything else and just strip mine the area. And then somebody's going to have to try to figure out how to build houses in giant quarries, or it's just going to have to, all this massive land filling and everything, have to redevelop all the land. Then eventually you're just going to have no nature there. It's going to be like this flat, barren wasteland. So, like, I don't know. I'm all about utilizing the resources we have, but I'm worried that someone's going to buy up all that land and just demolish it.
Okay, so 2 thoughts, and I want to say these before they Zoidberg and Sandcrab out of my head. Yeah. If we're building in quarries, it's a way cooler underground out west like that. So that would be built-in air conditioning. Not a terrible thing. Secondly, we definitely need to make sure we're not selling land to foreign countries, especially the great China. They need to just have all the land they've already bought forfeited, especially all the land near military bases and all the farmland.
That's why it should always be offered to American. And I agree with you. That's why it should always be offered to American citizens first. To the people that pay the taxes for the land, to upkeep the land already.
Yep. Especially after that attempted agri-terror incident.
Yeah. That's still nuts. I can't believe China tried that. How did that not get more media attention? Because in the weeks following that,
I think it was to keep panic at a minimum. That's my opinion.
But we should be panicking over China, like not for nothing, but
well, not just China, but the whole poisoning of the food supply like that.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the food supply is already poisoned, but potential loss of the food supply, people would go nuts.
100%.
So I think that's why they've tried to stamp it down.
But that's what kills me is why the government's so against homesteading, when if we actually had most Americans that grew their own food, then a lot of that would be irrelevant.
Yeah. But you need land to grow your food. And if you live in the big cities, you can't do that.
It's like some of our politicians are owned by China or something.
Oh, no, that's never a thing.
No,
quick side note. Yeah. Did you see the video I sent you about Nancy Pelosi?
Which one?
She might be getting indicted.
Ooh, for what?
This is, it's being led by Kash Patel. So
selling secrets possibly?
A lot of shit. So this might actually happen.
Good.
I can pull it up and we can read it here on the podcast. Because this is like some serious shit.
And I will act this way regardless of which party affiliation you have. If you're selling secrets and doing BS, you deserve to go to jail. End of story. I don't pick sides with crap like that. But especially
so it was for the FBI Director Kash Patel says the seizure of all of Nancy Pelosi's office staff records has led to actionable evidence that she orchestrated January 6th.
Well, we knew this. Because she denied.
Now there's proof. Now there's proof.
Yeah, they finally got the proof of her denying the police to come in, the National Guard.
Several of her staffers were in contact with undercover deep state agents inside the Capitol that day. So that's going to be an issue for her anyways. Patel says a grand jury to hear the evidence is forthcoming.
That'll be very interesting.
She gonna go to jail,
Well,
and she needs to.
couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
Right? Not at all. She's a piece of work, is what she is.
Okay. But people like you and I that follow politics, we've known this. Like,
Yeah.
and I will say, any person that was able to go from a net worth of like $200,000 to $200 million on a $170,000 salary in the course of 20 years, they're pulling some shady shit.
Yeah. Hey, track her stock trades. That's all you got to do. You two can be a millionaire.
She beats out Warren Buffett almost 2-1. It's scary.
Oh, yeah.
So, no insider trading happening at all. Not at all. No.
No. No. None.
Couldn't possibly.
Yeah. So there's also a GOP plan to sell 3,200 square miles of federal lands, but unfortunately that was ruled to violate Senate rules. So we'll see if that gets brought back up in some kind of a proper motion, because we know all about proper motions around here. And I mean the list goes on and on and on. So there's arguments both ways for and against selling federal lands. If you've got an opinion, we'd love to hear it. So
I guess my worry is we do want to preserve some of nature for the next generation after you, for kids, grandkids, so on and so forth.
Oh, absolutely.
And I guess my worry is I don't want America's value to be purely in just real estate. And then eventually someday we are just a metal metropolis full of, iron and concrete, rather than having, the idea of the idyllic, suburbs and open spaces and farmland. And if anything, we need more farmland more than more houses. And I hate to say it, but, if we can't grow enough food to sustain ourselves, what's the point of putting in more houses?
Yeah.
But that just means, AKA, we have too many damn people here.
Yep.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, the housing issue is not a simple, easy, or it's a matter that's going to take a lot of time and unfortunately a lot of effort from a lot of people to get corrected, and it's not going to happen soon or quickly. So if you're trying to get into a position to get a house, I sincerely wish you the best, because I hope things get better.
What I think we need to start doing is doing city planning way more efficiently, where we need to plan actual towns to be built that are for young people. We need to plan towns to be built for middle-aged people and then older people. I think we need to be far more direct with what the purpose of a town or settlement or village is and who its marketed demographic is for, and enforce it. Because unfortunately, like at least in my state, we have laws about you cannot discriminate against who you rent to or buy from whoever. The issue is, because older people can buy wherever they want, there will never be a space purely for young people to be able to buy our first house. Because older people have the assets and the leverage and the equity. So until we make laws about saying, hey, this town is for people between the age of 25 and like 50, or 25 and 45, for young families, or like 25 and 40 or whatever. Until we start making those rules, the young people are never going to have enough buying power to afford these houses. Or option number 2 is, instead of enforcing what the houses are in the area, you just enforce size requirements. So the idea is like, hey, maybe for instance, we should start building tiny communities where the idea is they're all tiny houses, 400 to 600 square feet. They're super well insulated, super efficient, and they're like $100,000, $50,000, whatever. And they're just meant to be a starter place. Hey, you have somewhere to sleep, somewhere to shit, somewhere to, chill and watch TV, have a small kitchen, that's it. It's basically like a New York City apartment, but on a house.
Okay,
for a hell of a lot cheaper.
That's what I wanted to kind of go into, was this whole concept of the tiny houses. I understand the want for some of these things, but as somebody who has been in situations where you're not given a lot of space to live, in the military, it is not a life that I would want for a lot of people. Not everybody is mentally suited to live in a confined area like that. Now, the definition of tiny house can vary. So I don't think tiny house is really the right way to go, but maybe just smaller houses that, like you said, are designed to be efficient construction, efficient build, space managed, and low cost by design. That doesn't mean they're built cheap. That doesn't mean they're just going to be a throwaway house, but a community of starter homes that are built to last. You could even do them on like leases. I mean, it's essentially going to be a rental community, but if their cost basis is set up, then that's something that can be done. Maybe it's done up with an equity program. If you live here, the rent counts towards your credit. And then when you leave, you transfer out, or you basically, you buy it for X amount of years. It's counted as a lease.
Yeah.
And then you lease it to somebody else, and there's an exchange of funds, and it works just like a sale. There are programs that can be done like that, but you need, again, land to do it. Now, over here where I'm at, I was looking at doing something similar to that, but the legislation is not in place to do that part of it. So I had the thought of buying the land, clear cutting it, getting it developed, and putting a few small properties on it to be rented out. But I don't have the capital to do it. I've got everything up here, but I don't have everything right here.
So this is part of one of the things I wanted to talk about is when I'm older and I decide to get into politics, because unfortunately I'm going to have to at some point, not by choice, but by necessity. One of the things I wanted...
It's 2032.
I know. Don't tempt me. I'll be old enough legally. So
yep.
We'll see. But one of the things I wanted to discuss with people was the idea of creating communities, what I consider tiny home communities, which really they're not like 300 square feet, but they're more like anywhere between like 1,000 to 500 or something like that, whatever you need in there. But the idea being of making small communities of maybe anywhere from 10 to 30 or 40 of those that are built to be super efficient. So they're extremely well insulated. They have solar panels. They have, electric everything, already hooked up to internet and whatnot, and water and everything. They have their own sewer system or hooked up to local sewer, even just maybe septic tanks that could be shared between several. The idea that instead of older people having to go to an old folks home or young people having to buy something they don't afford or whatever, the idea of making communities where you're surrounded by your peers, surrounded by people that have the same interests as you, and then marketing it towards those people. So, for example, in my case, what if I could find a community of people that are all into cars? What if I could find a community that are all into like gamers or stuff like that, or even all into firearms guys or whatever it is? What if you just want a community where it's literally just a bunch of old people and everything's quiet? You just want to be left the fuck alone. The get off my lawn type. That's awesome. Yep. There's a community for you. Why can't we develop a system to where you're allowed to say, hey, this is what we do here. This is what we're marketed towards. But what you do is there's a legal way around this. You have to be voted in and you pay a membership fee. Because in a membership, if the idea is you can vote it out at any time, there's no legal restriction on not being able to kick someone out. You know what I'm saying? So
man, then it becomes Survivor with your home. Well, I don't want that. I'm a dick.
Well, see, then you can go to a tiny, home people full of a bunch of assholes, which is fine. You can have fun, TP each other's house and egg each other's shit. But no, what I'm getting at is if there are communities that want to do that, though, that is an option. So if you want to have a community where people are quiet and then some like really young couple moves in and starts tearing up the place and be like, all right, quit it the fuck out. I don't want to hear your Mustang at 2 a.m. making a bunch of noise. Your membership's revoked. Get out of here. You have 30 days or whatever. But vice versa, if you can market these communities to people that want to be there, why not? It makes everyone happy.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they do this? Especially if you can make those homes cheap enough to where, and I agree with you, they can pay it off within several years. And then they have equity in that house they can use to eventually afford something else. And if you keep the overhead costs minimal, you don't use the stupid expensive appliances, you don't do anything crazy, and you have a strip mall that's built nearby that can give them some cheap jobs to live there. That way, hey, if you're a kid out of high school and you just want a 500 or 600 square foot house that's going to cost you $700-800 a month all in, maybe even $1,000, you could work at Wendy's and like actually afford your own place and a car. It would be a dream for some people. And you only need 10 or 20 acres to be able to put on a ton of houses. Right.
Now, one thing I want to kind of restipulate or not restipulate, push. This has been sitting in my head since the 90s when I first saw Judge Dredd. The idea of the megacities taking warehouses and converting them into apartment complexes on the inside with like retail space in the bottom, retail and commercial space.
Maybe not just warehouses, but even like malls and old shit like that, old malls and strip malls and stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I mean, that's actually pretty common in Europe to have like the 2-floor ones where the first floor is a shop or something like that, and the second floor is where people live. That's a very European idea.
Yeah.
Which I would agree
I
with.
didn't know they do it in Europe, but
yeah.
I think that's something they should be looking at here.
Damn right. I wish we did more often.
There's a lot of roof space for solar panels.
Yeah.
They've already got the square footage to run all the power supply for it. They could put a battery bank there. Wouldn't be anything.
And not only that, if you build the house the right way, you can even build a greenhouse on your roof. So the idea is you do the A-frame, that's all the glass and everything, and have it all enclosed. And graduations, you can now grow your own food and have a nice little patio up there. And it keeps everything nice and warm, so in the winter, you don't have to worry about your heating bill. In the summer, you have somewhere to put the heat offset from the house.
Look at us. We're solving another issue.
Well, yeah, that's what we do. The problem is no one listens to us. That's our issue. We can solve all the problems, but it's the people with money are like, yes, but I wouldn't make a return of 397%, so I'm just not going to do it. It's like, you know, I think that's one of the things that's going to get me into politics is trying to push for some of these solutions, or at least showing the proof of concept. Because I think one of the bigger issues we have, like, for example, when it comes to housing, there's a reason why a lot of veterans come back and are homeless. They don't have communities that can support them, like through a tiny house project like that with local, either law enforcement or medical staff right there. Same thing with people that were like ex-drug addicts or something like that, trying to reintegrate, or even people coming out of prison that are trying to reintegrate to get away from gang stuff, away from everything else. This could be used in any single way you want to do it, and the local resources could be provided. It just takes someone to organize it, because I've already run the numbers before. I know how to do it cost effective.
Yeah. I just saw a very interesting video that ties back into our prison reform episode. There's a prison over in, I want to say like Finland, Denmark, Sweden area.
Yeah.
They do prisons very differently over there. And they have a 5-year recidivism rate less than 20%. Whereas here in America, our 5-year recidivism rate is over 70%.
Yeah.
Because when they're locked up over there, they treat them like way different. They actually put them in school. They teach them skills. They make sure that they're taught like brain stuff, education stuff. Like, and these are the criminals that actually just have non-life sentences.
Yeah.
So like the sub 10-year sentences, like they're going to get out, so they need to be integrating into society when they get out. And the prisons are set up to look like the way society looks on the outside. It's not the 40-year-old building that just has a bunch of bars on the inside.
It's a focus on rehabilitation over punishment.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the way it should be for most crimes, or especially victimless crimes, or if it's your first crime.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you do some of the more extreme stuff, then, well,
Yeah.
I have the opposite opinion of you, of those people that do the more extreme stuff. But
tree shredder lube.
Yeah, exactly. But if you just committed tax fraud, I really don't think, you know what I mean? To be fair, taxes are theft anyway, so like, yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. But I would say,
how is it a crime if you're stealing from thieves?
You know, where's Robin Hood when you need him? But it's one of those things to where a focus on rehabilitation would be huge, which I know we did an episode about anyway, about the prison system and reform. I think that's a really important watch. I feel like we did a lot of problem solving there and really kind of pointed out a lot. But
we do a lot of problem solving every episode. What are you talking about?
It's what we do.
Yes.
You know, I feel like what we do is we give people other problems in the form of trauma, but we solve other problems. It's like we offset. We establish nature's balance, the balance in the universe. That between the start of our podcast, the end of our podcast, there's still the same amount of problems. Just we solve the problems for the world. We give people their own problems. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. Here's your own personal trauma, hand delivered by us. You're welcome.
That's what I do.
Yeah, you know.
Especially with you in the pre-show.
Oh, Jesus.
You're going to have nightmares someday because of me.
Gonna? Motherfucker, I've known you for a decade. Jesus Christ.
Longer than that.
12 years? 10, 11 years?
At least.
Yeah. Wow. I'm old. Fuck. I'm old. God damn.
Uh-huh.
I'm really gonna get my will in order. God, I gotta take my own advice and talk to a lawyer. Jesus, fuck. Mm-hmm. I don't have my will in set in stone yet.
Right. Yeah, me either. But all right, I think we've hit all the points we wanted to hit tonight. So, in being a weeknight, we're not going to drag this out.
Yeah, I think we definitely hit all the big points in our own unique way.
Yeah. I would like to go ahead and just confirm that there is no evidence that BlackRock is actively buying the federal land, but it has been proposed, and that's where it sits as of right now.
I think we know there's only a couple of companies that can afford to buy several thousand square miles of federal land like that. There's only a few companies that are going to have the capital.
Yeah.
And that already know the people at play.
Yeah.
So they'll buy it up and build, $10,000 million houses. And
besides the big three, I mean, Apple, Amazon, they could probably do it. Well, I really don't want to see out west Bezosville popping up. Well,
the problem is you're going to have Costco Town, Amazonville. I mean,
Yeah.
You know what's going to be weird is I think we're also going to be quickly going back to the era like how it was where there would be corporate towns or company towns. Yeah. So where they own everything and they're like, hey, you can work for us, but we're going to give you somewhere to live.
You know what that means?
What?
We could take a road trip and we're going to be driving and we'll see the giant white and blue sign with red writing. It just says, "Welcome to Costco. I love you."
Welcome to Costco. We love you. God. Imagine it's the Costco, like, "Welcome to Costco. We love you." And one of the rules is like forcibly you have to accept a hug anytime you go into Costco.
Oh,
Jesus.
And to get around it, they just put like the entrance sign at the city limits.
You have to stop and you have to show your receipt for buying gas. Yeah.
Oh.
What's going to be even wild though are some of those. I bet you some of those towns though, in order for tax reasons, they're going to make them electric vehicle only.
Probably.
I'll tell you that right now. That they're going to make their own insular towns to where like, good luck leaving. Oh no, this town is owned for the next 150 miles square wide, and we only sell electric vehicles that do 140 miles. Oh no, you can't leave. You can leave whenever you want. You just can't check out. I just telling you, we're gonna get to that point.
I think we'll save some of that for our Cities of the Future episode. We're going to have to do that one soon.
Oh yeah,
that'll be something good to talk about.
You will own nothing.
Because I think you're right. It'll be a lot of e-bikes, scooters, smart walkways, escalators, robo-taxis, that kind of shit.
That's what it will all be. So you don't have to own a vehicle. But if you want to get somewhere, you have to pay a lot of money to Uber to a rich guy that actually owns a car.
Yep.
It's gonna be weird. We keep going forward so far that we're going backward. We're gonna eventually be like the 1910s, where like rich people owned cars before Henry Ford came out and like actually started doing the assembly line. So, well, you're a rich person, you own a Tesla. By the way, that was also said back in 1910, back when Edison was making cars. Oh, you're a rich person, you own an Edison. Like it's literally just 120 years off.
Yeah. How bad is it that those were also electric cars?
That's what I'm saying. The first cars were
Yeah.
electric.
Yeah.
Which,
But, money.
hey, that's all it is.
Yep.
All it ever is.
Also, for our episode on the Fed that we're looking at doing, we have to mention the tie into the Titanic. I know I'm way off topic here, but oh yeah.
There's a few
yeah,
tie-ins
buddy.
on that one, so we go.
There are 3 tie-ins to the Titanic, and they have big names.
It was a setup band, I'm telling you.
The Titanic was a hit job.
Yeah, exactly.
That's-
Okay. Oh, so we're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Oh, tinfoil hats all around. Let's
Oh,
go.
yes.
Woo.
Yes, sir.
Woo,
We'll get the
buddy.
tinfoil hat for that episode.
I may make a tinfoil staff.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I got to figure out a way
All
to
right.
do that.
Well, wrap a branch in tinfoil. There you go.
That's oddly simple. I was way overcomplicating it. Fair enough.
Yep. Leave it to me. All right. So I think we're going to call this for tonight. If you made it this far, thank you. We love you. Gibbs will lovingly stroke your beard or your back hair, whichever you have. I will hopefully see some shares and whatnot on the socials. I actively encourage you guys to start trying to throw this in people's faces, get it into their eye holes, amongst other holes, and share the love. Don't look at me like that.
I can look at you however I want. It's free country, bitch.
Do not look at me in that tone of voice. But no, like we said last episode, challenge you to share this episode or this podcast with at least one friend. See if they like it and share the love. We're solving too many problems to just keep it to the small group that we've got.
Yeah.
Let's grow this bitch.
Yeah, make sure y'all keep fucking up stuff at home so we got problems to solve because we're running out of them.
Yeah, we keep solving them.
I know. I think the problem is we have to do an anti-podcast where we actually create problems in the world to keep this one going. That way, both podcasts kind of keep each other rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
You can be Gip and I'll be Pibs.
Oh man. The problem is I have spent well over a decade with one name, and if you change it on me, I'm gonna fuck it up every time.
Hey, I was able to change my name the other episode with just not even realizing I did it. So I was Gibbs for a moment. So
I know it was
that.
terrifying being Pip for a moment.
Uh-huh.
So much
How'd you
genitalia.
like that emotional trauma?
So much genitalia. I didn't even ask for it. It just showed up. Oh my
I am the
god.
earthquake.
Oh my god. Steak crevices everywhere. Sorry to the people at home. That was TMI. That was.
Oh god. All right. So we'll call it here. Thanks again for listening. We do appreciate you guys hanging out. And I guess we'll see y'all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.